Summers in Independence always come to a close as the hop vines reach the top of the twine, coiling over for one last climb. The autumn leaves begin to blow as the rain returns to quench the thirsty soil as the crevices drink their mud. River waters rise and rage again, meandering the northwest run through the lands of posh green fields of faded glory as the harvest days end and school days begin for the smallest of farm hands. The confronting aroma of hops is likely to whisk you away into a dreamlike state if you stand there long enough in the dawning silence of a dew-filled morning. That's how Rebecca Hart used to tell it, although the calluses on her little hands told a whole different tale, as did the weary palms of most hop-field campers lying in the fields during those early fall harvest days. My grandmother arrived in 1907, bound for Independence on the Hop Special. The train left Portland's Union Station at precisely 8 a.m. with an individual fare of $2.60 per round-trip ticket directly to and from the hop fields of the Willamette Valley. The West was still wild when the weary pioneers settled in on the fertile lands of the valley in Independence, Oregon, concluding a hero's journey from the homelands of Missouri in 1845. Elvin Thorpe was among the first to arrive in June of that year, staking his claim north of Ash Creek, declaring the small town site Thorpe's Town of Independence, later simplified as Independence. Later on, it was identified as the hops capital of the world, and families from all over hurried to Polk County, responding to an urgent call. Wanted 1,000 pickers for Hopfield. We pay $1.10 per 100 pounds. Perfect accommodations, food at city prices, free whiskey, dance 5 nights a week, evangelists on Sunday, and a hell of a time. The clickety-clack of the train tracks awoke me early in the fall, as I lay there recovering from the chaos and confusion of the past few days. I could only recall the emotional turbine of the moment because it was the apex of my evolution into the woman I was to become, although at the time I was unaware of the potentials stemming from those futures yet defined. Frankly, I was opposed to settling down into my unanticipated womanhood, nor did the roles of traditional feminism fancy a tickle within the veins of my lonely existence. Piercing the skin was my inevitability for what I had run from all along. Unbeknownst to me, it would reap life from the richest soils of independence, like a famished orchid born of drought. Being the last of a long line of proud heart women had its benefits and its breakdowns. I was no longer adjoined to the cord of the bloody rival, nor did I care to cart around the corpse of the family curse like it was my own to bear. Independence was exactly what I needed to unearth the sorceress of this unholy hex, so I could bargain an end to this madness and martyrdom that had overtook the better part of my lineage. It was up to me to recover the pride and prosperity that was once embezzled from the heart of our family by an enchanting curse of unknown origins and unfathomable outcomes. I could not have predicted how relevant this would all become in the tangles of what I had once recognized as the mirror of my reality. The trials and tribulations stumbled upon me as the curse was cued in my 23rd year. A mere fabrication of the story was told and retold for generations, but it is here and now that you will encounter the truth in terms of your perspective and not resultant from the twisted fate of slighted tongues whose harrowing ventures never did whisper of the liability strapped to the shoulders of those before them. The train pulled into the station as the sun sank on the Willamette Valley. "Now what, Miss Smarty Pants?" I said aloud to myself. I couldn't escape the rising feeling that this excursion would leave me empty-handed and no closer to the truth than I was 1,000 miles ago. I felt aimless and awkward, yet this place seemed oddly familiar, though it couldn't be, could it? I'd never been west of the Mississippi, although the moment those wheels ground to a halt, I stepped onto that platform and sensed I was finally home. Factor in the immeasurable distance I had traveled and that I had barely eaten in the past 2 days. Not to mention, all of this was a spontaneous combustion of some bad Chinese food and what could only be described as an hallucinatory projection of my great great grandmother Rebecca Hart demanding that I seek independence. Perhaps she didn't really mean it literally, but I had no way of knowing it, and yet somehow I knew and obeyed. I remembered reading about the Donation Land Act of 1850 and how it brought swarms of settlers into the Willamette Valley in an effort to Americanize the West Coast. Any married citizen filing an application for December 1851 was rewarded handsomely with his own settlement of 640 acres to develop any way he wished. Apparently, the act bore many teenage marriages. Regardless of your age, you were eligible to receive your land. Around 8,000 claims were registered under the act. Now, Miss Hart, where to next? I shuffled along the cracks in the pavement with the sunset in my eyes, following the strangers to a charming little station nestled in the beating heart of the Willamette Valley. I knew I needed to get some food and quick. My curiosity always seemed to outsmart the hunger in my belly. Before I knew it, I was on the highway to independence, retracing the tracks of my kinship history with my past laid to rest like a frozen swan in the ice of its beloved pool. Time eased up a bit, and my stomach took a rest. I copped a cold seat on the concrete and pitched a penny, feeding the fountain to silence the voices in my head. I stared out into the starry night life of Independence, where they say spirits can be heard in whispers through the streets, breathing tales once told in the wink of an eye and the slide of a smile. This was a place where secrets were layered in crevices of riverbed clay. It was a place of tragedy and song, solace and sorrows. This was a place where I would discover the heart of silence submerged deep within the earth's crust, where graves have yet to be dug. This was the place where I would find all the answers I never wanted to the questions I dared not ask. I did not know yet what I could not know, although my destiny lay deep in the root of that wicked curse, beneath the soils of my grandmother's sins in that godless farming town of my hopeless heritage. This affliction left me behind, came to haunt me as if it were my own to bear, begging me to unearth it, taunting me in the stillness of each ray of moonlight. I whined and groaned and realized I still had not had a bite. And so with that, I bid and begged for just a little sleep for the night, and I promised and promised that tomorrow I would surely eat.